Hey everyone, and welcome to 121 in Flux. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we talk about movies on this show. And this episode is actually the winner of our last Patreon vote. The four options last month for our patrons to vote on was Akira Kurosawa films, and the winner was, as you can see in the title, The Hidden Fortress. So that's what we're going to talk about. We'll start spoiler free, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers later on in the middle somewhere, and we'll go from there. So that's what we're going to do. And this one's notable, Connor. Why is it notable? You're a fan of why this is notable.
I am. Of course, this is the infamously one that inspired Star Wars.
That Lucas ripped off for Star Wars, yes.
I mean, no more than any of the westerns.
Just okay, sure. But we do have two goofballs that are R2D2 and C3PO, and we do have a princess who's a bit more of a badass than she's supposed to be.
Yeah, the princess and the general, the guy. That's definitely there, but I think that's actually like less of the inspiration. Yeah, it's there, but I don't think that's as much a part of it as the two goofballs.
Two
I think those
goofballs,
are the,
okay.
the core inspiration for me, anyway.
You think the princess being kind of Leia-esque is just kind of coincidence almost?
Almost. I mean, I'm sure it's partly inspired. I'm sure because so much of the movie is
Yeah.
clearly that, but
That's
I don't
fair.
think it's the necessarily the main
Now,
inspiration.
I'd seen this before. Had you?
Yes.
You had seen, okay, so we've both seen this before. This is a film about, as we say, two goofballs were in feudal Japan, and the two goofballs were in an army that have lost. Their clan is lost, and they're down on the luck. They're actually kept as slaves for a while, but then they escape during a bit of chaos, and they're kind of on their own. They think they've found some gold, and they eventually run into this like samurai, this really scary dude. Of course, played by Toshirô Mifune, who is in a lot of these movies. In fact, he was in Samurai One, Musashi Miyamoto, which we did a couple of weeks ago. He's in a lot of Kurosawa's films, and he's like your typical samurai who shows up, and he's kind of intimidating. They're kind of scared of him. And the entire plot revolves around the fact that he is actually working for the Princess Yuki, who's the princess of the clan that lost. So since she's in enemy territory, and they have to try and sneak her across the border to get back to safe land. And that's kind of what the movie becomes about. And they kind of get the help of the two goofballs by promising them some gold. But they're constantly trying to like steal it and run away, and that's kind of who they are as characters. And it's this journey, and the princess sort of like sees how the people really live, and she is, again, she's a very tough character. She's like upset that anyone wants to try and protect her. She wants to like fight herself. She wants to get in there and stuff like that. So that's kind of what the film is. So I assume you like it anyway.
I do. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, yeah. It's very much a more light-hearted Kurosawa film. There is a couple of deep little notes you can take here or there, but it's definitely one of his more adventure films.
It is. I think I've seen most of his samurai movies at this point, and this is maybe my least favorite. It's still a good movie,
Oh, really?
but it's maybe my least favorite of the samurai movies.
I wouldn't say that. There's definitely a couple that I. It's not even just so much that there's a couple I like less. I think this is solid mid-range of his samurai films.
Well, fair enough.
I guess I put that. I think I
I
have a
mean,
lot.
it's a pretty high bar, admittedly.
As we're talking about Akira Kurosawa, but I think for me it's a really entertaining one. It's really funny. I like the characters a lot. The two goofballs, particularly in the opening scenes, or not the opening scenes of the movie, but the opening scenes where they first run into Mikabe, who's Mifune's character, and he's just like standing in the background, and they've found this piece of gold, and they're like trying to find. Oh, that was hidden inside a stick. Where did you find that stick? And they're trying to like find in the rubble. They're looking for, and they're just these greedy characters who want gold. That's all. That's all they want. They want to build their own C3PO apparently, and they're just looking through. They're just trying to find gold. And he's just there and they're like, oh, we need to hide. No, don't show him. He's mean. He'll take all our gold from us. And they try and hide. And he just kind of keeps coming towards them, and he ends up showing up. And all of it plays out, and obviously it's in Japanese, but a lot of this is purely visual of them like sort of going and just hiding and trying to get
Yeah.
away and all that stuff. In fact, the princess later on in the film, she pretends to be mute because one of the things they're worried about. There's a couple of other generals who are kind of sort of sending them off on this trip. They're worried that because she is royalty, because she is of this high class, that she'll never pass for a regular common girl because they wouldn't talk or act like her. So their plan is just to have her to pretend to be mute and never say anything. Um,
It's a reasonable plan.
as a reasonable plan, I think you could probably analyze that a little bit. You know, just the idea that you can't show that you're smart, or you can't do that. You have to just pretend to be the, I think there's maybe some sexism commentary going on here a little bit, and then of course the stuff with the princess is that she actually wants to see like how how our regular common people actually live and see their own struggles, and she feels the own guilt. She doesn't want to just be in her ivory tower and not be affected by anything and look down on the peasants, if you will. She actually cares about her people. She wants to see them, and she goes out of her way to try and help a couple along the way. So that's probably the deepest the film gets. It's kind of her journey. If anything, she's the one with the biggest actual story arc.
Yeah, definitely. Most of them don't. They kind of just go on the adventure.
Yeah, because Makabe is just kind of the straight warrior. He's noble, he's honourable, maybe a little bit tired, but that's who he is, and that's him at the start. It's kind of him at the end. He's there for the journey. The two goofballs do kind of have an arc. It's very weighted though to the end.
Yeah,
because
so
this is
for the final 5 minutes.
This is a surprising thing watching this because I remembered what the story was roughly, but I'd forgotten that they don't actually have any growth until the final 3 minutes of the film, because they're still trying to just run away with the gold throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, it's right till the end where they're like, okay, fine.
And I think that's what's impressive about it, is the character work here, is that they shouldn't be that likable because they're always doing this. They never like agree that this is important. We want to help the princess. They're like constantly second guessing and going, oh, maybe we could go and turn her in and get the reward for turning the princess in. They're constantly scheming like that, but they're so idiotic, and they're never going to achieve any of it. You know that every time they try, it's going to be fumbled either by themselves, by Makabe, by the princess. And even that scene,
just circumstance as well at times.
Yeah, circumstances. Because going back to the whole she has to pretend to be mute thing, there's scenes where they assume she's deaf, so they just like concoct their plans in front of her.
I think the first scene where they go over that might be one of my favorites, where one of them's like, he starts talking, the other one says, hey, no, she's mute, not deaf, we can't talk in front of her. And the other one's like, don't be an idiot. Everyone knows that mute people are mute because they can't hear themselves speak. And that just kills me. And he's like, all right, I suppose you're right.
What I love about it is that, again, go back to the idea that she has to pretend she's not smart enough because it would make her stick out. Is that these two are so dumb, and she's sitting there, a really smart person, and listening and pretending that she's not comprehending what they're saying, and just waiting to see what they do.
How she doesn't roll her eyes, I have no idea.
Now, she has a very stern face. She also has this stance she always has, where she always kind of puts her legs far apart, and she's like holding her cane. It's like she's ready for a duel. She's always kind of ready to, like I'm standing my ground. Yeah. But no, it's a very funny film. There's a lot of, again, those two characters are very comic relief. There's a great little kind of funny twist early on. Because obviously the hidden fortress is this hidden base near the start of the film where the princess is hiding, and the two peasants were near there when they find this gold, and eventually Makabe comes and kind of like ends up sitting with them at the campfire and all the rest of it, and he makes them like follow him up this mountain and round this big sort of rocky cliff, and they eventually see this hidden fortress down in this like pit. It's like sort of well surrounded by everything, and they eventually climb down, and they are so tired and exhausted when they get there. They're like they're sweating, they're like ready to collapse, and Makabe's like, oh, this is the race ready, let's come and get things ready, and he basically just like leads them through this cave entrance, and they come out the other end. And then when they get out the other end, they turn around and look up, and it's so recognisable. The first time we saw Makabe was at the top of this slope, and they look round, and it's that slope, and they're like, shit, why didn't you tell us it was a shortcut? And it's this really funny moment when they've traipsed around and done all this climbing, and there's just like an entrance to go straight through. But it's really funny, and I think it's one of those jokes that it passes the language barrier. I mean, don't get me wrong, subtitles make everything work anyway, but the timing of this is still perfect, even if you don't speak Japanese, because it's a pure visual gag. It's like you see the slope and you realise, wait a minute, the joke's in the image. It's not in the dialogue. It's beautiful.
You understand it as they see it as well.
Absolutely. So you're kind of along for the ride in that sense. But yeah, so they're very good. Those two actors. They're very funny. They're very likable as they're being scheming and as they're plotting and
Yeah.
being weasels essentially.
Because they're not awful people. They're just selfish.
Yes.
But like because they're not actively trying to hurt anyone or anything like that. They just want the gold for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And there's other fun little parts when they end up losing a horse, and we'll get a cart instead, and it cuts to them like there's those two pulling the carts like, that was a great idea. Get a cart, yeah. Now we're the horses, and they're just dragging it along. Just them
there is
bickering,
a lot of that.
Yeah, them bickering and complaining is actually really enjoyable to watch.
It is, yeah.
Again, that's the sort of thing that could very easily not be. So, craft.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Craft. And then obviously Mifune is Mikabe. He has the presence. Like as soon as he first steps into the frame, he's this like interesting, mysterious figure.
Yeah, it's almost a very standard role for him.
I think that's almost intentional though, because the main characters are the goofballs, and the whole idea is we're following them. It's almost like, okay, so just to reference the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer for a second.
Here we go.
Right, so you know the Zeppo, the episode in season 3 where we follow Xander, right?
Yeah.
And he's the goofball, right? And the idea in that episode is that all this end of the world stuff's happening, but we're following him, and it turns out that it's like the actual end of the world plot feels so generic when you actually stop and think about what they're all doing. But that's okay because the whole point is there's a typical end of the world thing going on, but he's kind of the weirdo side character, and we'll follow him instead and what he's doing. And I think for this movie to work, is that the actual plot of what the samurai and the princess are doing has to be almost like a typical story. It has to be simple and straightforward, because the whole idea is that there's a generic a generic samurai movie happening, but we're following these two weird characters instead, who are just kind of along for the ride, and how they interpret things and how they're constantly scared and constantly try to run away, and they don't have a hero's journey. Their entire journey is, maybe we should not like try and betray each other every 2 minutes.
You're right, and I think that sentiment there at its core is the biggest inspiration for Star Wars there, because if you strip Star Wars down, it's pretty standard, right? It's just basically just take your standard Arthurian myth and just whack it in space, but it's like a lot of it is the perspective of the two weird characters with 3PO and R2.
Yeah.
So much of it is from them just kind of almost narrating over things and just giving their oddball opinions and beeps.
At least in the first one, yeah. I think it veers away from that as it goes. It just
but the first one specifically.
Yeah.
I was
gonna say even the first one though, I think that veers away from those two characters more than this film does from its two goofballs.
It does, yeah. It does at the points, but they're still kind of always there throughout most of the movie until at the final act.
Because there's a side character. I'll give the spoiler warning here, I think, just so I can freely talk about the advancements of the characters. But so full spoilers. There's a side character. There's this other general who's for the controlling army in this region, right? And there's a big scene later on where because the whole point is they're trying to go unnoticed, so they keep doing things. Because at one point the peasants are like, "Oh, what are we going to do with all the gold that's hidden in all the firewood?" And he's like, "Oh, we'll leave it out in the open, because then that's not suspicious. But if we try and hide all our firewood, that looks really weird." That's the point he's making. So there's a lot of that going on. But eventually they're on the cart, and a couple of troops basically see them as suspicious, and they come back. Even though they think they've gotten away with it at first, they come back, and Mikabe's like, "Okay, right, they're figuring us out. I'm just going to have to try and quickly kill them so they can't go back and report us." And he ends up chasing the one guy in the horse away, and he gets to the camp, and this other general guy comes out, and it turns out to be someone that he knows. This is someone, because the general's like, "Oh, Mikabe, I always wish we'd fight in battle. I wish that I can meet you in the battlefield and have an honourable fight."
I don't know if they know each other that well personally, or it's just by reputation.
Yeah, it may just be like they both know that they're the best of the best of opposing forces, and he wants to like duel him. So all the other troops just stand back, and we get this this is the thing, like the movie's so much about just following the peasants and their side of this. This scene on its own almost jumps out as, well, this is a really impressive fight scene all of a sudden.
Yeah, and it's quite this extended sequence away from the other characters.
Yeah.
Because it goes on for a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, one of the only, because there's all these like sheets. It's like divider, makeshift walls almost outside. Just like it's not tents because there's no roof, but it's just like dividers
Yeah.
for some privacy, I guess. But they're fighting between those, and they've both got spears. In fact, I love just one of the little subtle touches in the performance I like is at the start of the fight. He's like, "All right, I've got my spear. It's the best one, but you can pick any other spear from any of the other troops here." And he goes around and he like grabs he takes a few off a couple of different soldiers and he sort of tests them and swipes them a little bit and stabs them in the ground and he keeps throwing them back. And every time every time he does anything, they all just sort of like go back in fear.
They all go back a few steps every time.
And I thought that was really funny because it was just like, even though he's surrounded by the army, like theoretically he should have no chance.
He's strolling around like he's in charge.
Yeah, but he commands this scene. It's so good. But then they have their duel, and it's really well filmed. Obviously, the film's shot in 2.35, so it's nice and wide, big vistas. Works well, especially for the duel, especially when you've got these long weapons like the spears. So you're getting the width of everything. But the fight ends, and the general is lost, and he kneels down, and he wants him to kill him. He's like, no, give me the honorable death. I'm I'm a soldier, I'm a samurai. Put me down, and he doesn't. He shows him mercy, and he hates this because eventually later in the film, they actually eventually get captured out in the battlefield, and they capture the princess and him, and he's like, "Oh, you showed me mercy. The humiliation I felt because of that." And it's the princess, who's standing there, like, "No, you don't understand. Mercy's the kindest thing he could have done. That's the honourable thing, and it's not too." And I said the princess has got the biggest character arc. It might actually be this general guy who's only in like 3 scenes. But it does kind of have the biggest turn, but I think that's kind of the point is that almost happens. Just we see glimpses of it, but otherwise it's off camera, and it's like, oh no, this big story's happening where he becomes an ally and actually helps them escape at the end. And it's the idea that the princess going through and like her compassion and her wanting like, no, we should not, we shouldn't worship control and obedience. We should worship kindness and compassion, and that's the type of ruler I want to be. And she wants to convince him of that as well. Like, you can be this. You don't have to be part of this system. And but again, the idea that this is all happening because again, this is like probably the only second time we really go away from the goofballs. The one is the duel, and then here when they're captured, and the goofballs are kind of just on their own. If anything, there's just a funny scene towards in this part where they go and try and turn them in, and like, haha, we already captured them hours ago. Go home, you idiots, and they're just laughed at. But I think that's kind of part of the point again, is that like we have these big story beats happening, and we see some of it, of course, enough to like know what's going on. But it's almost like a little distant because again we're following the goofballs, and it's all just like how much it affects them, and they don't care.
It's all one step removed from the plot, isn't it?
Yeah, but it oddly kind of works in this movie.
It does, yeah.
And I think it's a great sign that Kurosawa is such a master of his craft that he was able to do this story that's detached from the main characters, make it work, make it have its own impact, and have great scenes on its own. Because I think all those characters are really interesting. Mikabe, the princess, the little general, they're all interesting characters, and they all like steal their scenes when they're there. But ultimately, we end, and they pick up the 2 goofballs at the end, and she's back in her palace, and they're like, oh, here's a reward, and it's like 1 bit of gold between them. And don't, because obviously there's been several times throughout the film where they promise to never betray each other again, but then as soon as one of them has some
immediately
gold,
backstab each other.
Yeah, my favorite one, of course, is when they get the horses in the battlefield, just as the others are getting captured, and like, oh no, I've got this horse. Well, I've got these 3 horses. I'll take these with the gold. You go, and immediately they start bickering. So the 1 bit of growth they have is in the final scene when they're walking down the palace steps. It's like they're actually offering it to each other. And like they finally seem to have learned to like stick by each other, which again, that's kind of what all the other characters have been doing, is that they're learning to stick by each other. The general's learned to stick by him, and now that he understands the honor of him and all the rest of it. So, or even just the idea of the slave that the princess insists that Mikabe pay for to free and bring with them.
Who just joins them? They're like, no,
that's
go
true,
away.
yeah.
We're in danger. You shouldn't be with us. And she's like, no, I'm staying with you.
Yeah, she just frees her actually, and then but the girl decides to just come and try and help. And again, it's this honor, compassion, kindness. She wants to repay the kindness and help out. So there's some really nice themes in there. There's some really human themes, and the whole thing is basically don't be a greedy little shitball. It's
Pretty much, yeah.
uh, but they're a lot of fun to watch when they're being greedy little shitballs. So it kind of has its cake and eat it too. So it's funny because the last movie we talked about was Jaws, and I talked about how that's essentially like a very straightforward adventure film. And it's a summer blockbuster, but it's really well crafted, and it's like it's not insulting to your intelligence. It's really well done. I think this falls into a similar vein actually, almost, where it's a really light film from Kurosawa, but it's really well crafted. Everything fits together. It's entertaining completely. The 2 hours fly in, I think.
No, okay. I feel like maybe it's slightly overlong. There's so many steps where they go through and then backstab each other. I feel like maybe it does those events maybe once too many. Like you could cut one of them out, cut out like 15 minutes.
Nah, maybe right. Maybe right.
Just in my opinion, would tighten it up a little. But I mean, it's nothing that major.
I tell you what, Alex, so there's a scene where they're hiding out at first, and there's like a parade going on. It's this ritual where they all burn wood and
the fire ceremony.
Yeah, and they decide, oh, we'll blend in by just being part of that group. And then like lots of soldiers show up, lots of samurai, and they're like, oh, anyone who looks suspicious, we'll have to search them. So they have to stay with the group. And all I could think was, did you really think blending in, like, because their gold's hidden in the firewood? Did you really think blending in with a place where they're all going to burn their wood, and it'll look suspicious if you don't want to burn your wood? Do you think that was a smart idea? So the two goofballs really don't want to burn the wood. They're really against it, and Mikabe has to come in like, no, this looks suspicious, and he just grabs the cart and just puts the wood out of the flames.
Yeah, I assume the original plan was that they'd trail along and just kind of slip out before they got to the ceremony.
Mm-hmm.
But then all the soldiers showed up and they just had to go all the way.
Yeah, and then they had to like dance. And what I love about the dancing is they're just kind of going along with it. Except the princess, who's never clearly done this and is actually happy to be a part of this celebration. Like it's a part of the life that she's never got to experience, and it's a really neat scene. And I love them just searching the dirt afterwards, and how the goofballs are determined to find every single piece. Yeah. And there's a great moment where Mikabe's like, okay, I can carry 40 pieces, you two can carry 30 each, and then the girls can carry 20. And they're like, oh, I can carry 40, but I can carry 50. And then you see them try to put on their sacks full of gold, and they're just like, they can't even stand up, and like Mikabe has to pick them up.
And of course they have to run away here because people start coming back.
Well, actually, no. They all leave, and then the goofballs come back because like, no, we want to dig more gold.
They're like, we want more.
Yeah.
We want all of it. This wasn't enough.
So again, it's the greed. The greed gets them in trouble.
It does, yeah.
As it does again. But they're just determined to... Because these randomers like come around, what are you doing? And they sort of like saunter off, and then they run. And again, they only look suspicious because they start running. Like, they constantly get themselves into their own trouble. And that's...
They do, yeah.
It's just
I mean, that's right from the start of the movie, obviously. We meet them, and then they're like, we'll go our own separate ways. And then immediately both of them just get captured.
Yeah, immediately get captured. It's not until the chaos happens, where there's like a riot where they get to escape from the prison camp.
Which I think actually that might be the most direct scene that was taken for Star Wars. Them on Tatooine, going the separate ways, and then both ending up with the Jawas.
Yeah, no, that's true. And I don't know how you say Mikabe represents it. He's a little bit of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be Obi-Wan, but in more of an original draft. Because, like I say, he's the general that that Leia reaches out for help. Yeah,
essentially, yeah. So you obviously can see how things have changed, but yeah, it's definitely...
Yeah. I think at the core idea, that's where that was.
I think this one goes really nicely with Yojimbo and Sanjuro as the lighter tone, just fun, action samurai movies. But then you'd have your more serious ones like Seven Samurai, and so on and so forth. I think the movie's gorgeous. It looks really great. There's a lot of fantastic looking stuff. So a great cast. Music's solid. Obviously, the music's very I feel like a lot of these movies from this era, from Japan specifically, have very similar sounding scores. I can't really differentiate them.
I agree. Yeah.
In my head too much, but I mean, it works for the movie. It works fine.
Yeah, it does what it's meant to.
Yeah. So no, it's a really really entertaining film. I think ultimately is what I'd come down to. I'd forgotten just how much fun it was watching these characters
Yeah,
bicker and run
I
away
think it
from
does boil down to being
Maccabi.
fun.
It does. It does, and that sometimes that sounds like an insult. You're forgiving it for other things, and we're not. It's actually extremely well put together and crafted. This is,
It
and
is, yeah.
this is why I when we talk about like modern movies and people use, oh well, it's fun, no, so just let away with things. It's like, no, but there's fun movies that don't have to be let away with things. There's fun movies that are
I
just
feel like we just
well
had this
made.
conversation in Jaws.
We did. It was the same thing though. That's why I compared it to it. Is that there's a very
Yeah,
similar thing where,
kind of a weird double feature for these two films to be back to back.
yeah, we kind of is
I
a
mean,
weird
we'd
way.
never have predicted that beforehand. Going, yeah, oh, those two,
Oh yeah,
they sound nothing alike, right?
there's nothing, plot, nothing alike. Well, I mean, hell, we're saying Star Wars is loosely inspired by it. Like, Star Wars ultimately is a fun adventure movie. It's not a deep movie,
No, absolutely.
but it's pretty well crafted. I mean, as I understand it, it was the editing room that saved a lot of it. Apparently, George Lucas.
Quite
Yeah.
possibly. I'm not going to dispute that.
Apparently, George Lucas shot so much crap that the editing room was the saving grace for that one.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to dispute that.
Yeah.
But hey, he shot enough crap that there was enough there to work with. Clearly.
Yeah, but how over budget did he go? How many extra days of shooting could have been cut from if he just done it properly?
I mean, you say that, but they gave him a bigger budget for the next one, so clearly it made enough.
That's true. It didn't make enough, but they also gave it to a different director. I think it's also
They did. That's telling. Yeah.
worth pointing out. The acclaimed director of RoboCop 2, I think you'll find. Um, hey, and guys, we'll be doing all the RoboCop movies in a year or two's time because they're doing a new RoboCop, so you can look forward to those.
Will. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Well, two of them will be fun.
Yeah.
What two will be fun? One will be interesting. Then the remake will be like.
Yeah. We might be able to get away with not doing that.
No, I feel like I need to. I want to. I want to do it.
I mean, every so often that poster pops up on some streaming service or other where I'm just scrolling through, and I see it and I go, ugh, I never want to watch that.
It wasn't even like the worst thing I've ever seen. It was just.
It just looks so generic and boring.
I'll tell you this. It won't be the worst film we've done because we did AVP 2. So RoboCop remake is better than that. I can guarantee you that.
It's a pretty low bar, but I'll take it.
It's a low bar. There's not many bars that go lower than AVPR or Alien vs Predator Requiem. That's a horrible acronym.
No.
Just AVP 2. Why not just AVP 2?
Because dick bags.
Even that sounds like honestly, 4-letter acronyms, like, they need to have a certain ring to it to work. I feel like there's nothing you can put after AVP. P sounds like the ending. It sounds, a conclusion to the phrase.
Mm.
You could put R before P and it'd sound alright. AVRP, that rolls. But AVPR,
Yeah,
not so much.
I'm just going through my head trying to use various letters after P and seeing if any of them work. I feel like you could do it with a similar letter like PB or PD.
Or even V again, AVPV.
Yeah, you have to have that same ring to it. Like one of
Yeah.
those would work after it.
I never expected this conversation to happen during the discussion of an Akira Kurosawa film. Which is this that's the second one we've done. We did
Bad Sleep Well.
Bad Sleep Well, which was fantastic.
Yes, I think this is the first samurai one we've done.
It is. It's not even the first Japanese samurai because we did Samurai 1 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. It's the first Kurosawa samurai.
And we'll be doing the second one probably in the not too distant future. But there'll definitely be more Kurosawa coming at some point.
Oh, of course.
I like Kurosawa, I like Hitchcock. It's kind of like we should probably make a point of doing at least one of their films a year because we're not going to run
probably.
out. They've got plenty. They both have like 30,
Yeah.
40 films to do. It's fine.
Yeah, no,
We're-
it's true.
We're good into our 60s. It's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I think no, I like this one quite a little bit. I feel like this one has an energy to it where I think there's some other films that are well acclaimed. Now, admittedly, I might change my opinion when I see them again. But Kagemusha, I don't remember loving too much. I enjoyed Ran, but I did feel the length of Ran.
It's funny because those are the two that notably are the two that I've not seen yet.
Because Ran looks great. The color, usage in Ran is great. It's almost like a video game actually. See when you find out the sort of the plot of Ran, you'll be like, oh, this feels very video gamey. But and obviously video games, I mean, they did exist, but not in the style
not to that level. Yeah.
So I like Ran. Kagemusha, I don't remember being particularly fond of, but I mean, to be honest, that is like maybe the only Kurosawa film I've seen that I wasn't super into. Like, the dude has a very strong bar.
Yeah, listen, I've not seen all of them, obviously, but I've seen enough to know, I like most of them.
Yeah.
This is probably on my lower end, but clearly I'm still very positive about this movie.
This might be controversial, and I might change my mind when I see it again, but I do think I like this more than Rashomon.
I mean, I've seen this twice now and Rashomon once, and maybe if I watch Rashomon again, it'll change. But I think I prefer that more.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking of the other. I mean, obviously, I'd rate Seven Samurai higher. I'd lightly rate Yojimbo and Sanjuro higher. I think I like this more than Throne of Blood.
Oh no. See, I'm a bit of an outlier though. Throne of Blood is easily my favorite.
But you've got some weird Shakespeare fetish.
But even aside from that, I think it's excellent.
Oh, it's good. Don't get me wrong. I think it's bad. I liked it, but I like this more. I think this has an energy to it that I can really get into.
Yeah, fair enough.
So no, I'm sure one day we'll do a top 10, top 20 Kurosawa films once we've done enough of them.
I think we have to work through enough of them on the show.
Oh, we do, yeah. Yeah, we have to hit a lot of the notable ones before we can do that.
Yeah.
But I'm actually curious. I actually kind of want to go and just do my top 10 just on my own. I just want to see what it is. I want to see what it looks like.
I was talking to this about a friend the other day. I was like, I can do 1 and 2 off the top of my head. I just mentioned Throne of Blood. I know my number 2. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I'd really have to think about it. Like, I'd have to really go through it and try and decide. It's tough.
No, again, that's why I say I compare it to Hitchcock, is because I feel like those are the two where they have such a huge filmography of like just classic after classic. And then some smaller films mixed in that are still probably great, but just don't have the same, acclaim. Yeah. So they're very similar in that sense, where you can get to the point where, oh shit, I've seen like 25 movies from this director, and there's still another 25 to go. How did that happen? These guys were workhorses; they were pumping them out somehow. And then these days, it's like, oh, that takes 3 years to make a movie. I'm like, well, you're never gonna get to 50 movies if you're making one every 3 years.
I know it's crazy that they these directors have this many films, but at this standard as well.
Yeah. I think it maybe says something that maybe how the business works a little bit differently now. I wonder how much overlap there used to be where a director would finish shooting, trust the editor, and then go start working on the next movie. Was there a lot of overlap like that?
Now they're a bit more involved.
There's also obviously a lot more visual effects, and there used to be something like this. There's not really any effects per se. I mean, obviously there's some stabbings and stuff, but it's not like.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously this changed a lot with science fiction, especially in the 70s with stuff like Star Wars and Alien and so on. But not that there wasn't sci-fi in the 50s and 60s, because obviously there was, but not to the same.
But there were mostly more B movies and lower class. Almost.
Yes. But all of a sudden, you had these, because it's just really impressive. Yeah, the amount of output they had with the typical standard, and if they had occasionally had a dip, you didn't really feel too bad about it. It's like, well, I mean, the last 10 were all knockouts. It's fine. You can have a weaker movie.
Yeah,
it's cool. So what was your final thoughts then on Hidden Fortress?
Yeah, I think it's a blast. It's a really easy watch, possibly the easiest of Kurosawa's to watch. But I think it's held back a little for me in that it doesn't aim for anything higher. It's fun, but it's just not quite going for as high as it could. It's hinting at things here or there, but never quite goes for them.
I think for me this just comes down to just how purely entertaining it is, and how effortlessly it is to just sit down and breeze through it. It moves so quick. The characters are all super likable. You get them right away. you know, they all immediately have the presence they're supposed to have, and you understand them on some level before they even open their mouth. Mifune especially, like his opening, like he's up at the top of that slope and he's looking down, and they're at the bottom of this slope, and it's, you know, the imagery, the symbolism of that, like them being at the bottom of the ladder, if you will. It all immediately is there. Like it conveys so much information with a single simple shot, so quickly that it's just fantastic storytelling, because he makes the points. Again, the word effortlessly comes back, but that's how it feels. It's just effortlessly. The points are made.
It does.
It doesn't feel like he's struggling to like get a point across, or we need to take 10 minutes to explain why a character's this way. You just get it. You just get it, and you just roll. You just keep rolling. So, with that said, we'll rate the film out of 10. So, Connor, what would you rate Hidden Fortress?
Yeah, I give it a straight 8, which I think it's really great.
I'm going to go a bit high on that. I'm going to go with a straight 9. I like, it is a lighter film, but I would never, you know, rate a lighter film lower for being lighter. If it's got the craft that makes it a great light film, then I'll go with the 9. And I think this is actually the upper mid level of Kurosawa, or the lower high tier. I don't know, but you know, I'd have to sit down and rank them all and sort of where are those lines, where are those barriers and thresholds, and then decide that. But no, Hidden Fortress is great. So this was the Patreon pick for the month. We should mention what that means exactly, because every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, which you can go over, at the $5 tier, there is a vote for an episode of In Flux, as well as there is for Screams and for 121 Overload that I do with Matt. But there's 4 movies go up, and the patrons get to vote between those 4 films, and then we'll do the winner. In fact, there was 2 votes for this month because we crossed a goal of $150, and that led to us doing another bowl film. We've not done it yet, admittedly. We'll be recording that next week, but that's coming because of that. But if you want voting rights and you want to be able to take part in that in the current month's vote, you can go over and check that out. Don't ask me what the 4 films are at the time of recording. I have no idea. I can't remember.
I was gonna just put you on the spot if you knew them.
There's no theme for this month's vote. It's just 4 films that I've been meaning to watch. So
yeah, I left it up to you this one, didn't I?
Yeah. So well, you can think of any themes. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pick 4 movies then, and you went fine, and then that's
pretty much
we went from there. So you can go over and check out that same tier also gets you the Screams and the Overload vote, as well as some other stuff. It is worth mentioning, even for $1 on Patreon, you get some exclusive stuff like 121 Extra, which is every other month, which alternates with Almost Cancelled Extra. It's like a movie topic show where we have a topic and we just talk about that. And that the first one that just went up this past week was about aspect ratios and the shape of the cinema screen and why we have those ratios, why is it important, and how it's changed and all that kind of thing. That was a good 100+ minute discussion.
Did we go that long?
Yeah, I think it was bang on 100 minutes actually. And that is you can get that for $1, as well as the Almost Cancelled Extra from last month. You can get access those. But if you don't want to support us on there, if you can't, don't feel too bad. You can like, subscribe, comment, all the rest of it. All of it helps to support the show and everything we do, so you can do that. But that is us. That is 121 in Flux for this. Well, it's not even just this week, because this is actually going up early in the week, because we're still doing makeup episodes here or there to make up for the lack of episodes in April and May. So you'll get another one later this week, whether that's on Patreon or public YouTube. Either way, it still applies. So you're getting one on the usual day of Friday later in the week, but we'll see you then. So thank you very much once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.